In life, we all ask the questions, why me? Why now? And why did this happen to me? But if we are honest with ourselves, as we keep living, we realize it had to happen. Why? Fate, purpose, destiny. In the long-anticipated release from G4 Life Publishing Company, author Terrence Williams takes us on a journey of some of life's lessons he has learned. On this journey, we find lessons which include makeover, it wasn't all her fault, legacy, and moving forward backwards. He encourages the reader to embrace the reality we all must face at some point in life, that whether you believe it or not, it had to happen.
I don't know if you can have a deep transformation without going through tough moments, right? Because seeing things like tough times really wakes us up. And there's something I've been telling a few of my friends, and I use it as a reminder to myself that your capacity to grow is directly tied to how much truth you can face without running.
Wow. And
I feel that truth is something that a lot of us avoid, escape from. And there are moments where, even now, which I'm not going through my best season now, I'm going through another sort of tough season, not as tough as last one, but that reminder that, once again, our capacity to grow is directly tied to how much truth we can face without running is something that even if we are deeply scared, even if we're deeply afraid, is understanding that perhaps the version of ourselves on the other side is worth meeting, but we have to have the courage and the self-trust to go through the doorway and face those things.
Welcome to another edition of Grace Talks. We are so excited to come into your living rooms, your cars, your bedrooms, wherever you're choosing to tune in, listen, watch. We are excited to have you. I am your host, Terrence, or T-Dub, as most of you know me. And Grace Talks is simply a place, a platform where we are ordinary people, and we're following ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And today I want to focus in, as we continue our series of the Wilderness series, or the Wilderness Experience. I want to continue with a guest that I have on again this time. His name is, well, I'll tell you that in a second. Let me tell you a little bit about him. First and foremost, he is a keynote speaker, and let me tell you, he is a firecracker, a wild one, engaging one, fun-loving. You enjoy his moments. He has great charisma. You're going to enjoy pretty much everything that comes out of his mouth because he's just so engaging. He's a workshop facilitator. I've had the moments to speak with him on some of the things that he is developing or has developed and constantly building, which is a framework that I think needs to go not only all across America, but all across the world. TEDx, listen up. Also, he is the host of the wonderful podcast, Redefining Wisdom. I present to some and introduce to others Daniel Cianci. Now, make sure, please correct me, sir. How do you the correct pronunciation of your last name, please?
First of all, Terrence, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. That was a great, great intro. I really appreciate that. And it's interesting because ori- originally it should be Cianci. However, I will say this, for 20 plus years of my life, because I was born and grew up in Venezuela, even though it's
Okay.
an Italian last name, everyone in school, because Daniel is such a common name, would call me by my last name, Cianci. So I adopted the Cianci here just because people kept asking if that was Italian, so I ran with it. But Cianci, Cianci, to me, both of them have been called several. But it should be Cianci if you really want to
Cianci.
be very
Okay.
picky. Yeah.
Okay. Angie, I love it. I love it. So we recently encountered one another at a Toastmasters competition. And so, Daniel, I want to say thank you for being so genuine, charismatic, and funny. How did you really get started in in the speech industry? Whether whether that was just a class or you got into the program of Toastmasters, how did all of this get started?
Terrence, that's such a great question because if you knew where I came from, you would still be. I mean, you would be in shock like me. Like, okay, how is this guy, doing this? How is this guy just being a public speaker or leading workshops? And because truth is, I'm a native Spanish speaker, and for over 20 years of my life, I had a heavy stutter. Like I'm talking about heavy stutter. The
Mm-hmm.
point, or the kind of stuttering that if after every 2 3 words I would get stuck. So to
Really?
me, yeah, it would be I would make official twitches and people would get very frustrated at me. Now I wasn't born with it. I developed it at the age of 5 or 6. We still don't know how or why, and until the age, until my late 20s. Now, after mid 20s, it got better. And in English, I do it much less than in Spanish. In Spanish, I still have some level of stuttering, but that create when you have a speech impediment growing up, that steals your confidence. That really it makes you shy. It makes you introverted. And as someone, just to add on top of that, somebody who, for better or for worse, right? It's not something I chose. I've always been like very deep, very much into deep conversations and understanding things at a deeper level. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
connect with a lot of people growing up. I felt like an outsider. I was never able to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, socially anxious, shy, introverted, the last thing I imagined myself doing as an adult was having a podcast, which it requires speaking in front of the camera, giving keynotes, which is giving speeches in front of, doing public speaking, which is number one fear that people have, and leading workshops. But it all started. I'm not going to get into a podcast just yet, but I'll tell because you asked about the public speaking. I took a class by accident in college that was rhetoric and persuasion, and I didn't know it was public speaking class, and I wanted to die when I found out that was the class. I was like, hell no, I don't want to be here. But because my friends were there as well, I decided to stick with it. It wasn't pleasant. I struggled a lot, obviously, but there's one point that I think it changed the trajectory of my life. I just wasn't able to see it back then. This was back in 2010. Halfway through this semester, I gave a speech, and the professor looked at me, and I knew I stutter, I knew I mumble, and he said, "Daniel, that's a great speech." And I was like, "Come on, dude. I mean, be real with me, right?" Because I knew that I knew. Yeah, I knew. Hey, I can see myself. I can tell that I wasn't good. But he stopped me and said, "Hey, no, you have a great body language. You connect with your audience and you feel your message. Especially you feel what you're saying." So that moment, it cracked something open inside of me because it was the first time that something saw something good in the very thing I've been ashamed of, which was my voice, the way I communicate, the way that I speak. But then it's not that the next day or the next year I became very fluently speaker or articulate or even eloquent speaker. No, I didn't do any public speaking for years at all. And by the way, that was in Spanish. And towards the end of 2024, I felt this intuition, this pull. And the name Toastmasters came out in 3 different times randomly in my life within a week span. And I'm like, fine, right? I'm going to explore that. I don't know what this is about. I'll go check it out. I went to one meeting at the end of 2024. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'd like to do this. I signed up for my first meeting as a member on January 2025, like just a little bit over a year ago. And on my first meeting, I gave my icebreaker, which is your very first speech as a member. And when I sat back down, I felt this rush of excitement, like moving through my whole body. And I was like, I'm onto something here. I don't know what this is yet. And then I ran with it. I discovered a talent I didn't know that I had in terms of connecting with people and really delivering a message, or just planting seeds, touching people's hearts, whatever the case may be. I felt like a messenger into some capacity. So that's how I got into public speaking, almost by accident, or not so much by accident, but by following that intuition, that pull.
Yeah, I can see that, because I got in July of 2025, and my year hasn't even hit yet, and I felt some of those same emotions. I think the way that you walked through that challenge, I know that's probably not where you're going to take us on the journey today, but just beginning with that, I can see the mountains and the valleys that it took to even get you here. But at the beginning of April, just to help you with some background of this specific series on Grace Talks, I asked and wondered, what could I be focused on? What should my theme be in the month of April? Because there's always, it's the month of this, is that, people are celebrating this special moment. So I just wanted to see what I could focus on in the month of April. And so I looked at the month, and because of my spiritual background, I will tap into numerology of God and the Bible and see how this means that and this leads to that. And so I looked at the month of April, and I know we're a Western society, and it's the 4th month. And I remembered when I was growing up or younger in church that the number 4, or the multiple 40, stands for testing or wilderness. As you know, Jesus was fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. The children of Israel went through the wilderness 40 years. So these types of things, Noah stayed in the ark for 40 days and 40 nights, I believe it was. So these different things keep popping up in my head. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should do and focus on the wilderness experience. And with that, connect with people who have experienced a wilderness moment or encounter, and let them just share how they walked through that process and how they came out and what they learned. And so literally that's what's been happening. So today is Daniel's turn. So let's get into that and see exactly where you'll take us. Segment 1 focuses on entering into the wilderness. What happens when you're actually going into your wilderness encounter or your wilderness experience? So, with that, I ask this question of you. When you realized that you were stepping into a difficult or a defining season, did you realize that? Did you characterize it as, oh, this seems different. This must be important. Did you look at it like that, or was it something else? How did you operate stepping into your difficult or your wilderness encounter?
I wish I had the awareness that I was entering probably, arguably, the hottest season of my life, and I didn't know it back then. And just for reference, this started in 2022, but just to give a little bit of context, what I didn't even imagine is that the way I treat my life is I go through moments and then, okay, this is a challenge. There's nothing I can do but going through it. And I come out on the other side and then keep going with my life. And only thanks to the reflection from friends when I share different stories about my life, that they come to me and say, dude, you have lived like 5 lifetimes based on everything that you have gone through. And to me, it's like, I have to look back at my own life and say, you know what? Actually, yeah, I've been going through a lot of stuff, but in my mind was never the case because I saw each obstacle individually, right? It could be from the stuttering and bullying to then cancer at the age of 13, 14, to then loneliness and depression in my late teens, to then now what happened in 2022, which I never expected this to happen. It just started happening, and it lasted longer than I thought, but it created the biggest transformation in my life, which once again, it was unexpected. So it all started, I remember January 2022, I was married at that point, and I remember telling my wife, like, hey, I think this year I'm locked in. I'm going to start pursuing other things. I want some changes in my life. I didn't have the clarity, but it seemed to me that I had set the intention, even unconsciously, of what my next chapter was going to be about. Well, I had to put those plans on hold because the next month, February 2022, I start falling into a deep depression. In a sense that I would wake up every day with just deep sadness in my body, like deep, deep, deep sadness. I would drive to work, and it wasn't that I hated my work or anything, but I would drive to work, and the only thing I wanted to do was to turn around, drive back, lock myself in the bathroom, and just cry. It was like such level of just something's going on here. And I started to go to therapy, and therapy has always been normal to me. I've gone through therapy since I was like 7 or 8 because I was diagnosed with ADHD. So to me, it was never a taboo. There was never something like, oh, I should be ashamed. I was like, okay, if I need help, I'm going to seek help. So what I discovered, I was going through a perfect storm inside. I had one, lack of direction in my life. I never had this passion or this meaning or this direction, right? To me, this purpose of meaning was BS in my head, because I was at that point 31, 32, and I was 31 at that point, and I never had that. So it was lack of direction. One, there was a lot of limiting beliefs and the way that I saw myself and lack of self-love that's also affecting me. And on the third side, there was subconsciously my marriage was falling apart. Things were not being addressed. It was mostly like a death of 1,000 cuts rather than individual thing. So long story short, I started going to therapy, and the marriage started falling apart quicker, right? And it's like too much for us to bare. It just like it was like both of our insecurities and fears and self-doubts came to a float, and it was too much to handle, and we both made mistakes. We couldn't save it. It's one of those breakups where both people are deeply sad and they're deeply heartbroken, because usually one person is already checked out, one person's like, you know, I'm done, I'm out of here, I'm just happy, I'm relieved. But this time it didn't happen. So yeah, that's when I was entering the wilderness without even knowing that I was getting there. So no, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. It just happened.
The deep feeling that you described there, would you focus it only in the emotional aspect of your heart or your internal, or would you say you had a pull and a tug from multiple areas? For example, mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological. How would you describe that?
In this particular case, I didn't have a pull. I usually I know when I have like encounter beliefs or encounter desires or feelings, and then it's just one comes from a place of intuition, the other one comes from a place of fear. This time it seemed like it was all in my body, like a deep sadness, and it would just live in the middle of my chest, and I just couldn't get myself out of it. And that's when I started getting deeper into depression. And I've experienced depression in the past, but nothing quite like that.
In the past that you just brought up, how long did it last for those depressive moments? And you're saying it was totally different in this scenario from all previous occurrences?
Yes. So in the past, back when I was in high school or in college or even in middle school, it came from a place, that depression came from a place of slightly loneliness, in terms of like I cannot connect with people. I cannot connect at a deeper level with people, right? It seems like I feel like an outsider. That was one. The other one, it was a strong longing, right? I've always been drawn to connection, like deep, meaningful connection. And I didn't have access to it. So a lot of that, and I've always been someone who many people, especially men, tend to repress and numb and distract from emotional storms. Me, on the other hand, I don't know if it's masochism, I don't know what it is. I just lean deeper and I dive into the intensity of the emotion. So if something's already kind of unstable, then I lean harder into that emotion, because I feel that I need to feel it fully, or I want it. I don't know, that it can create that state of depression growing up. But this one was different because there was nothing in my head. There was nothing visually or nothing environmentally that was causing that deep sadness. Because one thing is, when I would have these moments growing up that, I thought would pop into my mind, I want connection, I want this, I don't have it. And the sense of lack and separation would make you feel it strongly. This time, just from waking up, I was with the love of my life, and I had, if I would count my blessings, I had a lot of blessings, and yet something in me just wasn't right. And that's why I couldn't snap out of it, and it took quite a long time to really sort of dissipate.
I get that. Now, I'm going to say something. When I'm coaching my clients, I usually say this. Sometimes we don't know or recognize, as you just said, that we're in a wilderness encounter, experience, etc., until comfort disappears. So you did mention that. You said, you had the love of your life. no environmental influences that really harped on your day-to-day operation. So it had to be something deeply rooted that kind of brought that into play. But now let's switch for a moment into segment 2. You've started something. You're feeling something that's not normal. You're not really sure why it's happening, but it is happening. My question in Enduring the Wilderness, segment 2, my first question is, what do you feel was the hardest obstacle you faced during the time of going through this wilderness?
That's a very good question, and it is hard to tell because there were different moments that were deeply challenging. One of
Okay.
them, for instance, sure, 2022 was challenging. We were just taking some time off and trying to sort of work on on our marriage and fix it. But still, that was mostly the depression there. But then 2023 came when the marriage was officially over. It's like January, we knew this is over, right?
Yeah.
And the connection was still there. The friendship and the love and care was still there, but just something was broken inside. And June of that year, she moved to a different state. And that year, you start seeing how everything started falling apart in my life. Like, I had two good friends in Austin that suddenly moved. One moved to Italy, the other one moved to Denver. And then a couple of weeks later, maybe a month later, my now soon-to-be ex-wife was moving to a different state. And she was the last line of defense against my loneliness. When she
Wow.
left, I was completely alone. My parents don't live here. My brother and sister don't live here, not even in this country. My closest friends don't even live in. So that was weathering that storm, because now I'm not only depressed, I'm grieving. I'm
Right.
grieving my marriage. I'm grieving the life I had. I'm grieving the version of me I was with her. I'm grieving the future that I'm never going to be able to live. And if I'm honest with you, Terrence, I look back and I'm so grateful for that version of me, because I have no clue how I made it through. I have no idea. To me, it was just to put one foot in front of the other. The only thing I
Right.
remember was that almost every day I was like, I wasn't sure how I was going to make it through the day. I just wasn't sure. It's like, okay, you just and I never relied on alcohol or drugs or anything. I'm like, to me, I'm just running was my coping, and that was it. And honestly, no clue. I have no idea how I made it through, but we are on the other side. But that was probably the grieving plus the loneliness plus just everything falling apart in my old life had to come to an end for the new one to emerge.
I'm glad you went there, because I wanted to ask this question. You described everything that was leaving, and yet you were feeling the weakness or even the heaviness of the lack and the lack of connection. But yet you're still here. So what was it that kept you going every day, even though and I really mean this. I know, like I was speaking with a pastor. One of the episodes was a pastor. Another episode was a young lady who experienced death of a loved one, and then another person experienced actual the birth of his child, and then, there was a distance between him and his child, and he had to figure out how to make but yet you were losing and you still kept getting up. And I tell my people all the time, I say, yes, we know that God is there. We know that God wakes us up in the morning. We know that God is real. We know that, and I'm focused on that. But in the tangible, if you could say tangibly, psychologically, emotionally, physically, financially, I don't know. I want you to be real, like you always are. What kept you going, even though you may have wanted to quit? You felt like quitting through it all, each phase of it, from the beginning of the depression to the finalization of the divorce. What kept you from losing your mind? What did you do? What did you say? What did you experience? What did you see? Was there an activity that you did every day? Was it the foundation of the therapy that you've gotten all of your life? What was it? If you can dive into that.
Yeah, I love this question because it made me, while you were asking it, I was trying to figure it out. Because, to be honest, growing up, my dad used to say it all the time to me, that to him, all those people who commit suicide are cowards, people that don't want to deal with life, with adversity. And I grew up with that concept.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you go through moments like this, like, oh, no, I get it. I get now. I never truly consider it, but at least images pop your mind. It's never like, oh, I'm going to take action. And that's how they say that men are 5 times more likely to commit suicide after a breakup or divorce, because your only emotional support that many of us have, like, which is our partner, is not there when we need it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, it's like, there were running helped me. It's funny, I found running almost at the same time that my depression began. It was almost like, okay, look, I grew up Catholic. I'm not very religious. I'm more spiritual, which is, to me, just a higher power, I do believe. And it's almost like you're meant to go through this moment, this challenge. But obviously, I'm looking at it from today. I didn't see it back then. I didn't see it years ago. That I'm going to give you at least something that you can sort of rely on so you don't fully collapse. So I start getting into running. When I always hated running, I started getting into running, started running half marathons and full marathons, and started training. And running was how I coped. But even my running sessions and even 1 hour a week of therapy wasn't enough to keep me going. Because what do I do for the other 100+ hours in a week? How do I?
Right.
And honestly, the way that it felt, some days were better than others, other days were harder. The way that I describe to people is that going through what I went through, or going through depression, I think that a lot of people who have gone through deep depression or hard moments in their life might feel similar. That it was almost like waking up every morning and you have a rock and a hill, and you have to carry that rock and go up the hill and come down that hill. Sometimes it's just a pebble and a tiny hill. Some days it's a boulder and Mount Everest. And those moments were like, it is 11 a.m. and I just want the day to be over. I want the day to be over. But to me, I think I know what kept me going. I was so afraid. I was so scared of falling into even a darker hole, because I had no one in Austin to pull me out. By the way, at that point, I had a contract work. I was kind of like a freelancing, so I didn't have a structure. So if I skip 1 week or 2 weeks of work or whatever, nobody would have noticed. If I stayed in bed for a month, yeah. So it's not to me, I was self-reliant all the time. It's like, I don't have my parents here. I don't have friends here. So if I got into a dark path, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or even never live in bed, I don't know how I'm going to pull myself out of it. I cannot allow myself. I was so terrified of just being in dark hole. It's like, I'm screwed. If I get there, I just need to have enough strength to take it one extra day. And I think that's I think it was mostly, it wasn't a dream, it wasn't a goal, it wasn't because you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. To me, it was deep fear of, if I go any further, if I go, into even a darker place, no one is here to pull me out. Like, no one.
That's interesting. I feel like I can apply this quote. I heard Eric Thomas talk about this guru, and at the end of the story, the guru says to the man that he's speaking to, that's trying to get wisdom from him, he says, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, that's when things will shift. That's when you'll actually succeed. And I feel like your desire not to go deeper in depression was your desire to breathe. It was your desire to exist. I think we tend to take things for granted until, like you said, until you get in the moment, when you live it, when you experience it, then God says, okay, now I can trust you with more, versus us taking it for granted and just la 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 la. Yep, I'm going to work. I got money. Yep, I'm eating. I have legs to walk. And then you said you started running, which was something you just was like, what? Why would I do that? But now it's like, well, let me just try this out. And not knowing it would be your undergird while you're going through. I forgot to say this quote in my speech last week, but I'm going to give it to you now. Winston Churchill said, when you experience or you feel like you're going through hell, keep going through. And it was like, wait, what? Do what? When you're going through hell, keep going. I feel like you epitomized that with your story just now. When you're going through it, keep going. Because I don't feel like leave me alone. Just leave the covers over my head. But somehow, some way, you got up every day, whether it was to run, whether it was to go through your contractual, but God helped you to keep going through. Which is a great segue to our next segment, which is emerging from the wilderness. I know you got something good here. The turning point. The moment where things began to shift. Can you take us back to that? Where you felt your strength coming back. You felt your vitality rising up in you. Do you recall that and how that all went down?
Yeah. Before I jump into that, I want to just kind of address it, because that was a very interesting quote. Like, when you're going through hell, keep going. And if you think about it, it's like, it kind of makes sense, but it only makes sense if you think about it. Okay, if I'm going through hell, if I stop, why would I stop in hell? I need to get out of hell, right?
Yeah.
But once again, and this is one part of being, whether you're religious or spiritual or just whatnot, and this is something I was discussing with a friend about a month and a half ago. She asked me if there is free will. And to me, it's like, okay, that is an interesting question, because I do believe that that the situations we go through in life, right? Many times we don't choose those, right? So we don't have quote unquote free will on those, but we have free will on how we react to them and what we do with them. So I could have just been depressed and I kept my life the way that it was. And many times life will put you, or God or whoever, a similar challenge over and over and over again, maybe harder and harder, until you finally wake up, until you finally snap out of it, and you finally learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn, right? And sometimes we need to hit that wall many times until like, okay, enough is enough. What is happening here? And whether that was my moment or not, I the way that I took it was, once again, all these reflections, all this insight, all this wisdom is nice to say now, but when I was back then, I was like, I wish I had this, but I didn't. I was literally trying to survive. I was just literally trying to survive. But, and then you ask me how I got out of it. See, it wasn't this one thing that eventually, like one day I woke up like, done, boom, I'm a new person. Because throughout that process, especially 2023, after the divorce was imminent and we were no longer together, in her mind, for her, she was angry at God, at life, and everything. It's like how something so beautiful fell apart. To me, I felt it was pointless to be mad at God or life. But to me, I was deeply confused. I was deeply confused because to me, it's like, what was the point of having this wonderful, loving, fulfilling relationship for 9 years, and then it came to an end? I mean, what was the point? I just couldn't see it. I mean, it's like I didn't understand it. I wasn't angry. I was just confused. But again, since I didn't have the answers, I just kept going. And I think, once again, I think everything that happened was to change my path and to take me to where I am today. So I remember July of 2023, a month after she left. And as I said, the last line of defense against my loneliness. And I remember sitting on my couch, and for the first time, I asked myself, what do you want? I mean, what do you want? You lost everything that you knew as familiar. What do you want? And I sat with it for a while, and I don't know, 20 minutes after, 30 minutes after, just a thought popped into my mind, a podcast. Now, to be fair, podcast been in my mind for a while more as a hobby. I wanted to explore people's life and understand them better, hear them hear their stories. But this time felt different. This time felt, no, this is not a hobby. This is something that you should go for. But I still didn't trust it, because to me it's like, okay, maybe I've been conditioned by society. Like even the dog has a podcast. So is it something that I truly want? Am I chasing the shiny object, or is deeply aligned? Because that's what I needed to understand about myself. And after 2 weeks, oh no, I think this is, I evaluated why I wanted to do it. And I realized, no, even when you didn't know anything about podcasting 6 years ago, you were very interested in people's stories and just learning from them and getting that curiosity. And I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. And I gave myself from the end of July until the end of December of that year, 2023, to learn as much as I could. It's like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to learn. I'm going to just buy the equipment, understand everything. But the first week of January of 2024, I'm launching the podcast. I don't care. No matter what, I'm going to launch. And towards the end of the year, I was very stressed because, once again, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm putting things together. I have high standards for myself. And I remember both my therapist and my parents were telling me, you don't have to release it the first week of January. I mean, first episode can come at any time, right? It's like, give yourself more time. I was like, no, I told myself I was going to do it, and I'm going to do it. But at the same time, I was scared. Scared not because what people are going to think. I was scared for, it's like, once I take this step, there's no turning back.
Yeah.
I need to keep going. I need to keep going. So in the process of releasing a podcast, at the beginning, I started interviewing a few friends, and they all had a great experience. I say, I love the experience. It was so much fun. And they gave me compliments. But to me, I didn't even feel those compliments because, okay, you had never experienced a podcast, so you don't have anything to compare it with. And the more I started interviewing more people and people that had way more experience being interviewed, they kept telling me, like, you are a great host, you are, incredible interviewer. And I basically discovered a talent that I didn't know I had. And it all came from my own curiosity. I would ask questions. I would try to understand people's ideals and lens and how they see the world. And my sense of curiosity will just create this safe space that allow people to truly be themselves, be authentic, and just relax. And in that moment, I basically halfway through the year, maybe towards the end of 2024, I was like, now I understand why that needed to happen. Now I understand why I needed to go through all of this. Because if I stay married or if I had jumped to another relationship, I wouldn't have gone through the risk of going all in, not having a job, or just doing some freelance and just explore this at its fullest. I wouldn't have discovered this new path. And now everything became clearer. Now I finally had a sense of direction, a purpose, a meaning, and I had a vision of where I wanted to go. But it all started by one, going through something tough, right? Two, by asking myself what I really wanted. And three, by listening to my intuition and taking that first step, not knowing what was going to happen on the other side of it.
Well, you answered a whole bunch of questions in that discourse. So I appreciate you, because I was going to ask if you found anything or learned anything about yourself. And what I got was exactly what I have had in my wilderness experience, and that is clarity. Clarity. You don't come out of a wilderness experience the same. You come out with clarity. And when we begin to embrace that, now again, Dan, you said it over and over again, T, look, then I didn't know what the hell was going on. It's now that I look back that I see what my friends and my mentors tell me. As long as you have something now, you were able to receive before it was too late, before, life did not exist anymore, anything like that. But you had the opportunity to have a hindsight 2020. And so I do celebrate that in your life. Now that we're on the other side, you came through the wilderness, you received your clarity, you're walking in another realm now of life with what you're doing, what you're accomplishing. What are you walking in today that you believe was built in the wilderness? Is there anything that you're experiencing, you're walking, you're thriving in? I like that. Anything that you're thriving in this season of life that you feel was built, organized, architect in that season of your life?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, because yes, hindsight is 2020, but it's only 2020 if you're able to face the challenge, to face the truth. And it's something that I want people to understand, right? I don't know if you can have a deep transformation without going through tough moments, right? Because seeing things like tough times really wakes us up. And And there is something I've been telling a few of my friends, and I use it as a reminder to myself, that your capacity to grow is directly tied to how much truth you can face without running.
Wow.
And I feel that truth is something that a lot of us avoid, escape from. And there are moments where, even now, which I'm not going through my best season now, I'm going through another sort of tough season, not as tough as last one, but that reminder that, once again, our capacity to grow is directly tied to how much truth we can face without running is something that, even if we are deeply scared, even if we're deeply afraid, is understanding that perhaps the version of ourselves on the other side is worth meeting, but we have to have the courage and the self-trust to go through the doorway and face those things. There were a lot of things I needed to face about myself during that season. I said it was like a perfect storm. My marriage was falling apart. I didn't have a sense of direction or anything, but also I didn't love myself. I had a lot of conditioning based on the bullying growing up, the isolation, feeling like an outsider. And I remember telling my ex-wife when we're still married, it's like, I feel like I'm lame. I'm a lame person. And she took it as a way. It's like, wait, so you feel like your life with me is like bad? It's like, no, it's not even about you. It's just about how I feel about myself. And I had to face those wounds. I have to face those demons. I had to face that discomfort that, okay, if I'm already in a deep hole now, why? And going through those layers, healing those times that allow me to gain that clarity. I don't think I would have gained that clarity if I hadn't gone through it, if I had just numb a pain or escape it, or whether through alcohol, drugs, or hookups, or whatever the case may be. I would have never arrived here, and life probably would have put me another challenge, even more painful, to finally wake up and just be okay with it. But the podcast, I tell to people that podcast was probably one, if not the best decisions that I've ever made. Not because now I'm a successful podcaster, but because it was the first online step that allowed me to be on the journey, or on the road I was supposed to be to begin with, right? It's just at some point life will put you in a position where, okay, no, this is what you're meant to become.
Yes.
But for people not to be confused, that in my mind at that point, after going through all that pain, I never thought, okay, podcast is my only thing. I need to be the best podcaster I could be, and I need to be successful. I allow myself some flexibility. It's like, I don't know what life is going to put in front of me. Just surrender and let go, and don't fixate in one specific goal or finish line. And that's how suddenly, almost out of nowhere, the keynote and coaching and workshops that start just opening, in front of my life. It's like every step got revealed to me after the previous one. So that to me is just that sense of, okay, I'm being guided. Now I'm still struggling. I'm going through a tough time, but there's a sense of, I'm on the right path.
Yeah. I'm so grateful that you were able to see that you were being guided, and that you came out knowing that something had been built in you through your endurance. I just started exercising at a greater level, and we're going to switch into our last segment in a second. But I had to realize that my stamina and my endurance was lacking. And the only way that it could grow was that I had to endure the pain, the suffering, the anxiety, the anguish, the hurt of the go through to improve it. I've never been a weight person, a training person. So I've never really had a lot of muscles. But a friend of mine and my nephew, we all went to the gym one day. And we had done our different workouts or whatever. But then my friend was like, well, let me get on the bench press real quick. I want to see if I can do blah, 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 blah. And so he did it. And then we clapped for him and dapped him off. But then my nephew got on and he was like, let me do that. And then he put more weight over, did whatever he did. And so he started pumping and we clapped for him and we celebrated. Well, in that moment, I was like, well, I can't be the weird one out that everybody in the group is doing bench press, even though I knew that I was not one who knew how to really endure that. So finally, my point is this. They all had weights on the bar. Your boy Terrence started, and I just started doing the bar by itself. I said, I'm not, this is not my area. I took all the weights off and just lifted the bar up and down. And I was like, this is not as bad as I remembered it being. So then the next day we went back and I put some weights on. And lo and behold, here we go. I said all that to say this. If we don't learn to endure, as you said earlier, connecting with your thought earlier, if we don't learn to endure, we don't come out. We don't emerge. We can't come out. And then we can't teach others how to come out because we failed and died in the process. But the encouraging word for you and others before you get to the grace moment is this. The teacher is always quiet during the test. So when it seems like God is not saying anything while God, you see me, you know how we get emotionally. God, why am I going through this? I don't understand. And you're not saying anything. Can you at least tell me why you're picking on me and why? Usually we get lessons when we're in school, when we're in a class, of course, we get lessons and trainings that lead up to an evaluation, an assessment. But once you get to the assessment, the teacher is not there saying, pick A, pick B. The answer is number 1. D, all of the above. You don't get any of that during the test because I've already prepared you as you were going through the lessons. So when it's time to go through your wilderness, come on, Daniel, you can do this. I'm proud of you. You're going to make it through. You may not always hear it. You may not always feel it. But Daniel, you're going to come out. Yeah, I got something for you. Wait, you're going to see podcasting is coming. You're going to be on the stage. I know you say you don't like speaking. I know you just, the stutter. I'm going to put you on stages everywhere. And people going to get to know your name. They're going to remember who. But you got to come on through this test. I said all that to say this. It's grace moment time. And I'm excited for Daniel to share the final word. Now, Daniel, the grace moment is this. You've said a lot. You dropped a lot of nuggets. But if you have to leave us with one point, one major phrase, quote, scripture, ideology, I don't know how you're going to be led, but this is where we put the ball in your hands and say, this is the last 3 seconds. We need to hear something before we take the shot. We're in your hands, sir. What would you give us for the grace moment today?
Before I jump into the grace moment, I want to address the last thing that you said about when you're taking an exam, the teacher is quiet. And I love that because there have been moments in my life, especially now, once again, that I'm going through a tough time and I'm like, can you give me a freaking sign that I know I'm on the right path? That I'm like, can you, and you said, well, you took some lessons before the final exam. And the only thing I can think about was like, well, where was this on the book? Because I cannot find how to overcome this. Like, right? It's like, I mean, it just like a friend of mine keeps telling me, dude, just trust the process. And I'm like, does the process know I'm trusting it? Because I'm still waiting for, and I think it's a part of surrendering. It's a part of like, I used to be the kind of person, and life is putting me in a position in which like, okay, you were conditioned to be this way, but now you need to leave that in the back. I don't know if you remember, and I know I'm going on a slight tangent here, when you would put this bean on a container and put some cotton and you will see it grow. Mm-hmm. I will look at it every single day. Okay, nothing is happening. Instead of just letting it grow, right? That's part of my process. Like I'm looking for reassurance almost daily. Like, okay, is it happening? So patience. Basically, life is teaching me patience. But so I wanted to address that because that would give me a peace of mind when I'm going through a tough time and I don't see any signs. Like, okay, this is a test, and I just need to take one step at a time and trust myself.
Yeah.
But my final piece of grace, as you mentioned it, I think I'm going to say something because, once again, I need that reminder now. Most of the things I share, by the way, with people, 90% of the things I share with people, whether it's insights or wisdom or reflections, is mostly a reminder to myself because I feel like I need to hear this like now. But I said this on last week at the contest. And it was the ironic tragedy of life, that life has to be lived forward, but it only makes sense in reverse. That only with enough time and distance, you would see that those things that you hated that happened, that you never wanted to happen, you now see why they needed to happen, and you can connect the dots and understand that that needed to happen for you to be where you are now. That's where I happened with my divorce and my depression, and everything made sense probably truly midway last year. I'm talking about a process that started early 2022, almost 3.5 years later, when I like finally truly click, okay, now I truly understand why those things needed to happen. If somebody have asked me, if God himself had come to me and said, hey, Daniel, you have two options. One, you have a normal life, just like decent life with your wife, and it's like nothing out of the ordinary. You just like live like everyone else. Or you're going to have this extraordinary life where you have your dreams and direction, and you have this stage, and you have everything that you ever dream of in terms of not of money, but in terms of meaning, in terms of purpose, right? Which one would you choose? I'm glad he didn't come to me because I would have chosen stayed in my marriage, stayed with the person I love. So I didn't have to choose. But that wasn't the whole book, was a chapter that had to come to an end. Neither of us liked it. Both of us hated it. But now I'm here today, and I've discovered this new. I reinvented myself in alignment. Thanks to that. So when you're going through a tough, so now I'm using that, even though as we said, hindsight is 2020, and sure, I can only see where I am today and those events that I had when they happen. But now I'm using the same concept for the present. It's like, okay, I'm going through a tough time now. I don't know why. I cannot see it, but eventually I'll be looking back today and I will understand, that's why I needed to
Right.
go through it. Did I like it? No, I hated it. I didn't enjoy it, but it was necessary for me to be where I'm going to be in 6 months from now, in a year from now. So I use that to reduce the amount of suffering of the bad times, because pain is inevitable. We cannot avoid pain, but suffering is usually a matter of perspective. Once you change that perspective, your suffering lowers, and you don't have to, once again, suffer so much once you understand that there is a purpose and a meaning to this pain I'm going through.
Something happened to my connection. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm back. I just want to say this. It even took away my virtual background. But anyway, let me say this. Give me your phrase one more time.
The ironic tragedy of life, and that is that life has to be lived forward, but it only makes sense in reverse.
Daniel, such an impactful episode. Thank you so very much. I have your information, and you're going to have to get rid of me. You're going to have to say, Terrence, please stop calling me. Terrence, stop texting me. I'm not talking to nobody. I have your information. I know how to find you. How can those who are interested in following you, your podcast, your social medias, connecting with you on an upcoming workshop that you may be leading, what is it? Give us a number, telephone numbers, social media sites, websites, whatever. Can you give us your information? I'll make sure to put it on the website as well. On the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. It was a great conversation. I really had an incredible time. But yes, people can find me. My podcast is Redefining Wisdom. Redefining Wisdom. It's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and anywhere where you listen to your podcast is there. For social media, I'm both on Instagram and TikTok is Daniel M, and my last name Cianci or Cianci, which is CIANCI. So it would be at DANIEL MCIANCI. And yeah, just feel free to message me whenever you hear this and you were able to connect or something resonated with you, just let us know, because I think that a lot of people have gone through tough times and they need something that gives them that glimpse of hope, that things can turn around and it's not always darkness, that they might be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. I clearly needed it back in the day, and now I see it.
Yes. And Daniel will be back for another episode in the future, because May, which is my birthday month,
all right,
international holiday, also has two major areas that are very, very dear to me. Number one, mental health awareness is the month of May, as well as Ichthyosis Awareness Month. And I have lived with the genetical skin disorder of ichthyosis all my life, and I've dealt with major seasons of my life with mental health, as we kind of touched on tonight. But I cannot wait, because you have to come back and share some more wisdom and nuggets, because I appreciate you so much. To my audience, thank you so much, family, for tuning in yet again. We want to make sure you remember, we all are a work in progress. Therefore, continue to grow in grace every day, every hour, every minute, every second. Let us all continue to grow in grace. This is T-Dub, Terrence, signing off saying to remember, be ordinary, but do extraordinary. Have a great time. See you soon.
Thank you, Terrence. Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and it'll be my pleasure to come back and keep chatting with you. Just you're a great host, and once again, it felt like time flew by.
If you have a question or would like us to discuss a specific topic, Grace Talks wants to hear from you. You can email us at gracetalks@graceforlife.com. That's grace_talks@grace-4-life.com.